Look at the pictures. Listen to the stories.
It looked like it was coming. It looked like it was going to get into the valley.
It won't take long to realize just how big the Biscuit fire was. The largest fire in the nation in 2002, the largest in Oregon in over a century. The fire ended up burning nearly 500,000 acres, but some people say it didn't have to.
Honestly, people were mad at the Forest Service. They were real mad that the Forest Service had let it get so big.
Communities on edge for months as the Biscuit fire grew from 5 small starts to a massive complex of fires crews would eventually call the Beast.
I remember looking towards the Illinois River Road and actually watching it plume and drop. It's where the smoke actually goes up and makes a head, and then it comes down a mile past that and plumes out. And then watching the black smoke and everybody hearing go, oh, there goes McCaleb's ranch.
Cassandra Humphreys was a public information officer during the fire. She saw the effects of the flames on the community and the firefighters.
There was a lot of tired people.
At one point, firefighters from all 50 states and several countries were hiking in and out of the remote Kalmiopsis wilderness trying to contain the Biscuit. To understand the controversy and how the fire got so big, you have to go back to the beginning. July 2002. It was hot and dry. Oregon had been spared any major fires, but that wasn't the case in other states.
2002 was another huge fire season in the Southwest and the Rocky Mountain area. So a lot of our local resources had been deployed to those areas to fight fires like Rodeo Chedesky and the Hayman Fire in Colorado.
That all changed on July 12, 2002. A series of dry lightning storms moved across Northern California and Southern Oregon. 12,000 strikes in 3 days, sparking hundreds of small fires. July 13, 2002. Firefighters went out scouting for starts. They doused several, but 2, the Carter and the Biscuit 1, would prove more difficult. The Carter was contained within a few days. The Biscuit 1 left to burn. In those cases, a matter of priorities.
You know, what's the risk to communities, private property, critical infrastructure, power lines, highways, that sort of thing? Or is it burning in the backcountry? What's the priority? So we make those kinds of decisions when we have multiple fire starts like that.
The 3 other fires which eventually made up the Biscuit were discovered over the next few days, all burned.
You know, in the case of Biscuit, we didn't have a lot of resources available for the number of starts that we were trying to deal with here in Southwest Oregon.
It was out in the middle of an area that hadn't burned in quite a while. It started in the wilderness, so it's as it was. And then once it got a head of steam, there were other fires that required the staffing because of threats to structures and everything else. So they could not get the resources that they might have had initially.
Captain Joe Feldhaus remembers the Biscuit. He says it's the largest fire he's seen in his 35-year career. It's also the fire that made him a refugee, evacuated from his home weeks into the battle.
We ended up stopping it about 3/4 of a mile from my place.
Captain Tom Zeliger was also there fighting the flames and protecting homes. He was among those questioning whether the Forest Service did everything it could to keep the fire from burning.
You know, I don't know what they were thinking. I know what they did. And they didn't take action on it for a while.
The Forest Service says it had good reason to hold back.
We had limited resources. We had numerous fires burning, threatening structures and communities. Those kinds of things play into the mix. We have to prioritize where we're going to go. The other fires were less accessible, or by the time we got there, with the resources that we had, they wouldn't have been successful. So, we need to assess that as far as safety for our firefighters and stuff. Were we putting them in a situation where, number one, they can't be successful, and number two, they're dealing with some pretty extreme fire behavior with limited safety zones and escape routes? Why would you do that?
But some people say there's more to this story. They say there were resources available. A report by the U.S. General Accounting Office shows there was a question as to whether Oregon crews called California for help, and if they did, why they turned that help away.
We had that offer. Given the size of the fires, The availability of the helicopter was very limited as far as the amount of time they'd be able to spend on the fire. The assessment was made that the help that they were offering wasn't going to be significant enough to try and engage them.
Once the fires grew and combined, the Biscuit became a priority, but the options for fighting it were still limited. That's when the decision was made to backburn. Firefighters starting their own line of flames to prevent the wildfire from burning out of control into communities. The backburn ended up being nearly as large as the Biscuit fire itself. Again, it's a decision the Forest Service defends.
Given the terrain conditions and access issues around this fire, the strategy became to fall back, put line in, burn it out, and try and keep it in a box.
The Biscuit fire didn't claim any lives and only 4 homes burned.
At one point in time, the Illinois Valley was under an evacuation notice. Firefighters put in over 40 miles of fire line in order to halt the advance of the fire and minimize the impacts. Pretty heroic stuff.
Fire managers say that's a success.
You know, we have a lot of training and experience behind us when we make those kinds of decisions. Do we always make the right one? Possibly not, but it's not for lack of experience or trying. It was a tough year. We did what we could do with what we had. I don't think many of the decisions, if any of the decisions that were made during that first few days of that fire event would change much today.
The Biscuit fire has been out now for 9.5 years. Its effects still seen and remembered. People on both sides of the controversy are sure of one thing: it's a matter of time before we're facing something like the Biscuit again. They also know from the flames come new beginnings.
As it comes back, I see the smoke, I see the fires, remembering just the awesome glow of the entire, mountainside, just glowing in the middle of the night, never kind of going out at all. And I also see the new growth and the way that the land is repairing itself and healing itself and trying to come back.